here. Really, people talking all day long here.
With the Amex Gold Card, you get rewarded for discovering new favorites. From the hottest hot pot.
I've been playing with MCP integration into AI coding IDEs for the past few days. It has totally changed my workflow and boosted my productivity. So my cursor not only generates codes, but also calling text to image model to generate all the gaming assets that is needed for developing the game that you're seeing here. And not only that, when there are bugs, my cursor also look into console log and network.
Super sad, dude. I thought Jupiter was a good guy, but we'll see. I don't know.
Request to debug the error. It can even read my Supabase database directly and doing internet search, looking into my Figma file. All of those thanks to the MCP server function. So today I will take you through what is MCP, how can you integrate existing MCPs that other people already created, as well as the easiest way to set up your own MCP server in just a few minutes. For people who are watching this video, you probably more or less heard about MCP, which is a model context protocol introduced by Anthropic last year. It basically provides a universal interface for people to connect their agent to all sorts of different data source and external systems. You can think of MCP like a USB-C port for all sorts of different AI applications. Just like USB-C provides standardized way to connect your device to all sorts of different accessories, MCP provides standardized ways to connect AI model to different data source and external systems. What's really interesting is AI coding has evolved a lot for the past few months, from initially just a chat copilot to composer that can create files, to nowadays all the modern AI IDE like Cursor and Windows Server, all building powerful agents that can do some plannings and take a lot of different types of actions. At default, Cursor coding agents will have a list of actions that it can take. But what if you wanted to do more? That's where the MCP comes in. You can build all sorts of different custom integrations so that Cursor can access almost whatever you want. That really changed the game for AI codings. MCP can be used for many different scenarios. For example, some of MCP server might be just prompts where the agent can just call certain MCP like analyze code and it will return a proper user message with specific prompt that can guide the agent's behavior for the next actions. But on the other side, MCP can also be used to connect to different external resource as well as systems to calling different API endpoint. But when you look at Anthropic's MCP doc, it is fairly complicated and not exactly clear how can you install and create your own MCP very easily. That's why today I want to take you through some of my favorite MCP as well as the easiest way to build your own MCP that can connect your cursor into any source of system you want. So without further ado, let's get it. There are a few marketplaces already.
Again, 7 to 9. Look how much more training I have done by simply starting at 4. Right? And so now you do that, and as the years go on, the separation that you have with your competitors and your peers just grows larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. And by year 5 or 6, doesn't matter what kind of work they do in the summer, they're never going to catch up.
Existed that show you a list of MCP that other people have created that you can use, from Glama.ai, Smithry, Cursor.directory, as well as LLM systems where they have hosted MCP server that you can use. And the way you can use those platforms is that you can search for the MCP that you want to use. For example, if I want to add this sequential thinking MCP, which is a type of MCP that will force agent to think through a few different steps and do some plannings, I can choose the AI ID that I'm using, in this case it will be Cursor, and I can just copy this command line over, go to my cursor, select feature, and in the MCP server I can click on add MCP. I can give a name, and the name here doesn't really matter. I can just call it sequential thinking, and there are 2 different types you can choose. In most cases, for now, you'll probably choose command, which means it will run a local command to call this server. But if you're using some host MCP server, then you can choose SSE. But most of the time, it is almost always command. So we can add this and click add the button. You will see that this is a new MCP server added called sequential thinking, and this is one tool called sequential thinking. So what I can do is that we can start a new chat with agent and just give a prompt. I want to build a game. Now let's plan it using sequential thinking. Don't generate any code yet. And then you will be prompted to call this MCP server. And for this specific tool, if you open it, you can see that it is basically trying to use function call to force agent generate multiple different thoughts. It is counting how many thoughts that it needs to do in total, and the next thought needed will be true, which means if I finish this, it will try to continue doing another thought. We repeat this process for probably 8 times. If you want, you can also turn on this YOLO mode, which means you don't need to approve every single time, but I would suggest you to do the manual one first. But to make it something more interesting, you can also search for a Reddit MCP. And one thing to note is that currently there's no standardized way to install or set up MCPs. Each MCP is kind of set up differently, and the quality of MCPs on those websites are also quite unstable. Many of them don't really work at all. and this makes adoption a lot harder. But I'll show you a few examples of common ways to install those MCPs. Basically, I want to find a command line to use. Sometimes they will provide npx package directly, which you can copy and start using. But quite often you will have a problem that it didn't really work. For example, if I copy this one and add a MCP server, Reddit, MCP, you might see that this MCP has no tool available, which means you can't do anything with it. But you might also say JSON like this. And for this one, you basically need to convert them into a single line command, which in this case will be the UVX from git link here, MCP Reddit. And you can separate them out with space. So I can copy this and add a new server, call it Reddit command, and paste in. You can see that this has been added with two tools, fetch Reddit hot threads and fetch Reddit post content. And we can give it a try. What are some latest hot content on Reddit? It will try to call this MCP to fetch Reddit hot threads. And if I click accept, you can see it return some of the content from Reddit. So this is basically how you can use those existing platform to find MCP that you might be able to use. But one really annoying thing of using other people's MCP at the moment is that even though there are MCP directories, many of those MCPs didn't actually work, or it is very complicated to set up with incomplete documents. I spent quite a lot of time testing different MCPs and filtered down a list of MCPs that is both useful and usable. I'll share those lists in the AI Builder Club community I'm building, and I'll continue sharing new interesting MCP I found. So if you're interested, you can click on the link below to join my community. But what I want to show you is a few MCP that I personally use a lot that really boost my productivity. And the first